some point, the math is the math.
I think we can do a better job using that information.
It reinforces my belief that I have the best constituents.
Hello, Clawbackers. Councilmember Jimmy Flannigan. Back at it at the Clawback Live. We're on episode 7. Thanks to all of you who are following along. Met so many folks in the community now who are watching the Clawback. Hello, everybody. Even starting to get a few content ideas. One idea that we got was to have a deeper dive on what's coming in the Apple campus. So we're going to put our minions hard to work on pulling that information together and then give you an update on the future of that new site, the impact to traffic, and maybe even a little bit of information on what's going on in Robinson Ranch. But today we're going to cover different topics than the Apple campus. Let me pull my... I do this wrong every time. I should really label the keys on the keyboard. I'm going to hit a button. It's going to be right. Hey, I did it right this time. There are my titles. Elections. This is the last clawback before the midterm off-cycle November election on Tuesday. If you're watching this on Friday, you can go vote today. Today is the last day of early voting. When you go out to vote, be sure to vote no on city propositions A and B. You can read more about the background on those items on my website, jimmyflannigan.com/2019-guide with all that information. And of course, all of the groups that have now come out in agreement with our position, voting no on A and B, like the Statesman and the Chronicle. Even most recently, Austin Anthem, the supporters group for the soccer team. Hi, soccer supporters. Thanks for being on the right side of the fight again. So make sure you go out and vote. But the other thing I want to talk about, these petitions keep hitting our ballot over and over and over again. And thank you, Austinites, for continuing to defeat them. But they're not stopping. There's even a new petition drive out there trying to recall most of my colleagues. This is a ridiculous effort to undermine democracy and specifically undermine 10-1. I know District Sixers are passionate about district representation and what life was like back in the days when only Central Austin had a voice at City Hall. We don't want to go back to those days. And that's essentially what's happening with this recall effort. So anytime you're presented with a petition, if you're at the library, if you're at the movie theater, if you're at the grocery store, be sure to read it. And if you're unsure about what's on a petition, don't sign it. You can always go back and follow up later if it turns out that you liked it. But more often than not, you won't like it. So just avoid those petitions when you see them. Project Connect, we had a big joint meeting this week between the City Council and the Project Connect or the Cap Metro Board talking about the future of high-capacity transit. What is the big move we're going to make on public transportation in this community? And I want to show you, I'm going to jump over to the map, which I think is now on your screen. This is zoomed in. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. This is the long-term vision plan, kind of a preliminary plan as we think about the future of high-capacity transit. You can see, if I zoom in on District 6, you can see there's the red line. The gray dotted line are our express buses that we have. That's the bus that I tend to ride when I can take transit in the mornings. And a new line, you can see the Parmer line that cuts across the northern part of the city. All of those serving District 6, but the Parmer line being a new service. But more importantly, what does that service get you to? And as you go down those lines, you can see orange line. And then as you get into downtown, you can see the blue line. The blue line, I'm going to scroll to the side here, goes out to the airport. I know a lot of people are interested and excited about being able to take a train to the airport. But there's a lot more on this map than just those things. This is a system plan. This is the future that is going to help us address traffic in our community. Now, there's big numbers being thrown around. All the numbers have B's next to them, billions of dollars. But as we dig into the plan itself, I'm certainly going to be taking a very laser-like focus on the return on investment and the business case and the balance sheet for these investments to make sure that not only does it make sense to do, but that we can actually afford it not tomorrow, but 20 years from now. Cities where their transit systems are failing didn't do that type of planning. they jumped in first and they didn't think about the cost 30 years from now. Austin's not going to make that mistake. I'm certainly not going to make that mistake. A lot more information yet to come out on that. If you've seen other news stories, be sure to dig into that information. And of course, the Project Connect website itself, they've added a little notice at the top so you can get directly to the resources that are the same resources that I was provided at the joint work session. You can get into the vision plan. You can get into all the different analyses of the green line and the blue line and the orange line, neighborhood circulators, Metro Rapid, red line. All of the data is on the website at projectconnect.com. And when you scroll down, you can see the resource page either at the top. You can scroll down, see resources at the bottom. So you get all the information you need on Project Connect. Our third item, homelessness. We keep talking about this. It's a really, make that go away. It's a really important issue in our community. The governor talked about November 1st as a deadline. Today is November 1st. All I've seen so far is a couple of signs, paper taped to concrete posts under the overpasses saying that TxDOT is going to come and move people along. But unfortunately, those notices cite resources that the city provides or the city is a partner in that are already full. So it's not clear what the governor's plan is for these folks who are under the overpasses now. And that's always kind of been the problem. That's been the challenge. We don't like seeing folks camping. They don't like to be camping. We don't like to see it. But the real question is, well, where do they go? I don't know that the governor's got an answer for that. And I really hope whatever steps are taken over the weekend or Monday or Tuesday are really taken in that level of consideration. It's not going to be good in District 6, for example, for the 4 or 5 people that are under the overpass at McNeil to just go back to where they were before, behind the big lots. It's not like they were coming here from all over the world. They were already in our community. Another thing that may be coming up is the idea of setting up kind of big barracks style tents. There's ideas like that was tried in San Diego, although I'm not sure we want to take our cues from the West Coast, but I think a few folks saw that and decided it might be an interesting investment. The problem again is you will still spend $10 to $20 million setting it up, operating it, maintaining it, instead of investing that money in a system that solves the issue. That's where the communities that have struggled in this issue, they fail in this moment. This is the moment where we have to be strong and we have to be focused on actual solutions and not wasting money on temporary fixes that really, if we had invested it wisely, could have helped us a year from now and 2 years from now. Nobody wants to see this problem go on forever. I would love to be able to solve this thing with a snap of my finger. It's just not how it works. And so I really hope that the state really does think about its investments in a different way. I've shared these types of data points with you before that the foster care system, 70% of the 18-year-olds aging out of the foster care system are homeless. There's a real problem with jail facilities dropping off parolees in our community without sufficient resources. There are problems in the healthcare system when folks experiencing homelessness receive treatment, but they don't have sufficient aftercare. And those costs just continually build up and they get borne by someone. Some of those costs appear in your insurance premiums. Of course, that's a national conversation that the city of Austin alone can't solve. So we really do need the help of the state to get this problem addressed. But the good news is we're already making progress. We had a great work session with our homeless strategy officer and the executive director of ECHO, which is the nonprofit that is supposed to coordinate all of the resources. They get federal dollars. ECHO gets federal dollars. That in the last 2 months, we have housed as a community over 400 people. That's a lot. Considering that the last point in time count was 2,200 and change, 400 in 2 months is a hell of a pace. Now, nobody is saying that we've got all the resources in place that we need to hit 400 every 2 months, but we do know how to address the issue. It just takes a little bit of time. The resources are mostly in place. We just have to stay strong and make sure that we're not spending resources on temporary fixes that we'll wish we had spent differently 2 years from now. So I really hope that's where we end up. And I hope the governor becomes our partner in this effort and really brings the state to the table in a productive way. That's all we have today on homelessness. Make my titles go away. I'm hitting all my buttons correctly today. I'm really excited about that. All right, so we've been reviewing the Land Development Code in our last couple of episodes, and we are going to do more Land Development Code review today. When I did the titles last week, I made a joke about not getting my phone calls from Miley Cyrus returned. Turns out these audio clips are available public use through the Wikipedia Creative Commons license. So now that I've discovered that, expect some very interesting titles in the future. But I'm glad I was able to pull that one off. You will see the additional attribution in the credits at the end of the show. But what we're talking about today in the Land Development Code is multifamily. Last week, we talked about house scale residential, the zones that are R2, R3, R4, and almost all of District 6 is zoned R2. And so we had that conversation last week. What I want to talk about today are the multifamily zones. Those are called RM. So I'm going to pull that up. Here we go. So, as you know, you can go to austintexas.gov/LDC, stands for Land Development Code. That's what the page looks like. You go to the code draft and map. You can scroll down. You can see chapter 3 is the zoning code. Below that, you see the proposed zoning map. If you click on the proposed zoning map, you go to a page that looks like this. We showed you this map 2 episodes ago. You can scroll around your neighborhood or any other part of the city and click on a property and see the proposed zone and what it's currently zoned. This particular property, as an example, is an apartment complex. It's actually very close to where I live myself. This apartment complex current zoning is RR, which is not a zoning that allows apartment complexes, because a lot of District 6 got zoning after annexation where things had already been built. So a lot of the zoning that appears dramatically changing in District 6 is really just right sizing to what's on the ground today. RM2 is essentially what that apartment complex is. And you can, if you are familiar with this area along San Felipe and Palm Springs Road, you know you've got a lot of these apartment complexes, 2- and 3-story buildings. A lot of it fairly old, a lot of it still somewhat affordable. So it's really good to see these zonings being matched to their actual uses. Let's talk about what's in the zone. If you open up that chapter, scroll down to the part about residential multi-unit zones. That's what the RM stands for, residential multi-unit. Just like in the R zones, you can see the use table. Here's the table here. And it lists all the different types of uses, things you can do on a property with this zone. And then it has the columns for each of the zones, RM1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and MH. MH is manufactured housing. It's slightly different type of zoning than the regular RM zones. But you can see that as the RM number increases, the number of permitted uses changes. And as we talked about last week, if you see an MUP or a CUP, that's a minor use permit or a conditional use permit. And that's a process where staff or Platting Commission or the Zoning and Platting Commission reviews anyone, property owner's prospective use, can apply additional conditions, other different types of rules if someone wants to do this use on this site. And that really allows us to get to that context sensitivity that the council asked for in the code direction earlier this year. But I want to scroll into a couple of the zones. RM1, you can see again, here's the uses that are allowed in our RM1, the amount of entitlement, the number of units, the size of the lots, the floor to area ratio, which is mostly about kind of the massing of the building. How big does the building feel? You can see the setbacks, you can see the building form, you can see the height. Height is often the thing people are most concerned about. You can see in RM1, that's 40 feet. In all of the residential house scale zones, it's 35 feet. So an RM1 is basically the same height. 5 feet is barely perceptible. That's RM1. Go to RM2, see the same layout. You got the uses, you got the sizes, you got the heights, you got all of the different requirements. I want to talk a little bit about how height is defined in the RM2 zone. As I showed you, RM2 is the zoning that was on that particular. I don't know if you all heard the doorbell through the microphone, but I really am doing this from my house. We'll find out who's at the door later. The height on an RM2 zone, Base is also 40 feet. It's also 40 feet, not that much taller than a 2-story house. But there's the Hbp bonus. We talked a little bit about this bonus in the last episode. In order for a developer to access this additional height, or in this case, also additional units or additional floor to area ratio, they have to provide a certain percentage of those units at a income restricted level. There's a lot of conversation about affordable housing. We'll do more deep dive into affordable housing in a future episode, but ultimately this is the tool the state gives us. We cannot just require affordable housing in a base zoning. It has to be done through this bonus program, and that's what we're crafting. And it's a much better and stronger bonus program and applies in more places across the city than the one we have now. So in the last analysis we got from staff, we should be able to realize 2, 3, 4 times the amount of affordable housing in the new code than the current code would allow or facilitate. So a lot of good stuff in here. And of course, if you keep scrolling, you can see RM3, RM4, the heights go up a little bit more, the number of units go up a little bit more. But again, all of this is really out of context unless you go back and look at a map and see exactly where these zones are zoned, so you can get a sense of where things are. The other thing on height is compatibility. I'm going to get back there on the RM2. You can see on an RM2 zone that it's 40 feet overall, but if there is a residential house within 25 feet, they can't get to 40 feet. If it's in 50 feet, they can't get to 40 feet. You can see compatibility, we call it step back. So the farther away the building is from an R2 zone, which again is most of District 6, then the building can't get too tall too quickly unless they're providing affordable housing, which is a big goal and objective for our whole community. So that's the latest on the land development code. Again, I keep going longer and longer in these episodes, but I hope it's valuable information for everybody. I'm going to jump over to our credits. Thanks everyone for watching the Clawback today. Make sure to go vote. If you're seeing this on Friday, you can early vote today. Otherwise, go out and vote on Tuesday. Vote no on city propositions A and B. Check out my voter's guide, jimmyflannigan.com. Like and share the video. If you're on Facebook, share it. If you're on YouTube, subscribe. If you're on Instagram TV, you can watch it. You can also get the podcast on SoundCloud. Thanks everyone for watching.